Here's an interesting little engine that I built out of just a bunch of Pontiac parts that I had laying around the garage. Some of these parts were given to me. A lot of them laid around for several years. The engine started out as a 1975 Pontiac 350 4-barrel. It is the original engine in the 1975 Firebird formula that you see here. The 65,000 mile original short block was untouched. It was simply cleaned and painted, fitted with brass freeze plugs. A Canton road race oil pan was used, along with a good quality double roller timing chain and gear assembly. The camshaft is one of my custom designs. It was ground for me by Tim Goolsby at Bullet Ultradyne in Olive Branch, Mississippi. It features 467 lift, 220-226 duration at 50 on a 111.5 lobe separation angle. The cylinder heads are 1966 421 cubic inch heads. They're an 092 casting. They have very small 68 cc combustion chambers, 192 intake with a 166 exhaust. There's really no way to put big valves in these heads because of the size of the combustion chamber, and the big valves aren't necessary. The 192-166 valve arrangement in this head would produce 385 horsepower in a 421. You don't need big valves in a 350 cubic inch Pontiac motor. The cylinder heads were modified with half-inch screw-in studs. Guide plates are not needed on these heads. The cylinder heads have a cast-in pushrod guide similar to those in a small block Chevrolet. Comp cams, roller tip rock arms were used because they allow us to use the short Pontiac valve cover, which is critical to maintaining the functionality of the ram air system without a spacer. The push rods were actually a set that came out of another motor. They were made for a roller cam application. They're 8.700 long, and they fit perfectly with these early heads and gave correct geometry on the intake and exhaust valves with the roller tip rockers. Sharp eyes will notice that the heater hose out the back, typically used on the Pontiac that came up around the distributor here, has been eliminated. The press-in heater hose nipple is not very secure. They do come out from time to time. As typical on everything that I build, I always use the circle track mindset of reliability. You can see the heater hoses now come up to the front through the factory bracket and screw into the front of the aluminum intake manifold using a 90-degree fitting off of a Cadillac. Sharp eyes will also notice that all of the heater hose clamps here that are being used have been taken from the LT1 Chevy Caprice. The squeeze clamps are quick, effective, they are reusable, and they do not chew up the hose like the screw type worm gear drive clamps do. Moving back around, you'll notice the excellent clearance between the ram air cleaner assembly and the upper radiator hose. This is a unique upper radiator hose. It is from a 1980 Turbo Trans Am 4.9 liter. It has a unique shape which clears the power steering hoses, power steering pump, good clearance with the alternator and the ram air cleaner assembly. Probably the best part of this hose, you will notice a slight bulge in the hose here. This end of the hose is 1.5 inches, and this end of the hose is 1.25 inches. This is a 4-row radiator out of a 4.9 Turbo Trans Am. The late radiator has the small 1.25 outlet. Most people that have the wrong style outlet, a lot of the aftermarket radiators come with the smaller outlet. They'll just cut a piece of heater hose, stuff it in, or a piece of radiator hose and stuff it in the hose and put 2 clamps on it. If you have the late Pontiac radiator with the small outlet, the 80-81 Turbo Trans Am upper radiator hose is the way to go. Coming around on the driver's side, you will notice that the heat shield has been modified to fit and function with the Hedman number 28150 inch and 3/4 primary 4-tube headers. Moving down to this angle, you'll notice the companion outlet on the bottom of the ram air cleaner for the thermostatic air cleaner hose. This gives it good cold weather drivability. It can be plugged in the summertime, but it also gives it the appearance of being completely stock. The color is a plum enamel that we used on circle track engines back in the 1980s, and it was revived for this project to make the engine stand out, because you never seem to see a Pontiac engine painted anything other than Pontiac silver blue, so we wanted it to look different. The ignition system consists of a basically stock HEI unit. It's fitted with a MSD low resistance carbon button, so there's virtually no resistance between the rotor and the coil. The stock carbon button in the HEI sometimes has as much as 19 to 21,000 ohms of resistance. This carbon button has 4 ohms of resistance. Spark plugs used for street driving are AC R46SZ, gapped at 80 thousandths. During dyno testing, the engine is fitted with Autolite AR72s, number 2 heat range, a very cold plug, gapped at 24 thousandths. The ignition advance curve is 20 degrees at idle at 650 RPM, pulling 17 inches of manifold vacuum, 16 degrees of mechanical advance beginning at about 1250 RPM and full advance by 2800, for a total of 36 degrees, and a vacuum advance is used for an additional 8 degrees of advance, 44 degrees total. The vacuum advance is plugged off for dyno testing. Anyone that's used the 092 heads knows that the center head bolt on each side is unique. They are a 1/2 inch thread head bolt with a 5/8 hex. The 5/8 hex is necessary to clear the air injection tunnel in the head. Those head bolts are difficult to find. When you do find them, they're 30+ years old. What I decided to do here was use a grade 8 Allen, 4.5 inches long. It fits the pocket in the head, plenty of clearance for the air injection tunnel. Torques up to 95 foot-pounds, hasn't given us any problems. You'll also notice that Eastwood stainless steel coating was used on the tops of the exhaust ports, which gives it a nice clean finished appearance. This engine's got a couple hours of run time on it. No blistering, peeling, burning, anything like that. 800 CFM quadrajet, custom jetted, 74 jets, 44 metering rods, 29 thousandths metering rods in the back with a G hanger, 8 inch of vacuum power piston spring, 353 horsepower on the dyno, 385 foot-pounds of torque. Not bad for a 350 cubic inch engine for less than $500. Be sure to check out a couple of the videos that show the engine running, and we'll post some more videos as soon as we get the front sheet metal on.